Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 70 of the Nope Coach Show. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined today by Suzy Wraines. And Suzy sent me an email and said that she'd love to come on and talk about inner healing. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Suzy and let's go. What prompted you to reach out? What do you want to share? I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, first, congratulations on 70 episodes.
Thank you.
And I love chatting with you. I have a podcast as well, and Suzanne's been on mine. So I just am so happy for you. And this is perfect timing. When I saw your new podcast come up, I was like, oh, so much is happening with me. I need to share it. So in the last probably month, this is very fresh. I have partnered with Transpersonal Energy Healing Certification course. I'm not plugging it, but it's what it is. It's healing from childhood trauma with energy, your body's energy, like your nervous system. So like when you talk about boundaries and people get anxious about something, or if they say yes to something and then they pull back and they're like, why did I say yes to that? I don't want to do that. So what I'm learning is there's 5 energy defense patterns. And it tied really beautifully with what you share around boundaries, because we all have a dominant pattern that was created in childhood development, those childhood development years. And it's medically, psychologically, scientifically, like all of this is research that has been done. And so in these patterns, one of the patterns is very, very, I say yes to everything. I don't say no. I say yes, because of the subconscious defensive. I had to do that as a child because of the circumstance I was in. And this isn't bad parenting or bad circumstances or a traumatic event. This is just, you could come from a household that had 4 kids. You're the youngest. Something happened during that developmental stage that makes you do this pattern because you were amongst multiple children, and certain things happened when you were developing. So anyway, I'm learning about these patterns, and I'm learning about my own. So I work with a coach who does the process of me letting my body have the reaction. So really allowing my nervous system to go to the fight or flight or freeze, and then asking myself to walk through what's causing that. So what is it that I'm thinking about that made my body respond? And then going through the process of deconstructing that and saying, you know what, that was when you were 2. You don't have to think like that anymore. It's okay. It's safe. Now you can come to the present. You can say no to people without you going into an anxiety attack, or you having, feel like you have to say yes all the time, because that's just how you coped when you were growing up. So that's been
I love that. And things that were adaptive when we were children, like things that worked, patterns of behavior that become ingrained, can be maladaptive when we're older. So something that I work with my clients with is, when we do have a reaction that when we catch it, we're like, this seems out of proportion to the current situation. Something I encourage them to ask themselves is, how old am I? Like, it's such a simple question. And then sometimes you'll get, 2, 16, 8, 4. And then it'll be like, so is this reaction then and there or here and now? And then it'll be like, oh, it's, in the past, this has happened, or, so sometimes it's the straw that broke the camel's back moment, because there are versions of us that are frozen in time. Like I could have a whole discussion about inner child and parts and all this stuff, which, I won't go into, but there are versions of us that, freeze, fight, flight, and freeze. And then we imprint that. And then when we're older and something similar happens, it's trauma. And there's, lots of studies and lots of bodies of work and lots of things that we are now uncovering or becoming more common knowledge. Whereas in the past, I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps, whatever that means, or just get over it. So I love that, you're bringing these things to light for people, because sometimes we can be like, why is this? It's not that big of a deal here and now, but it was then and there.
And it's our nervous system. So when people have chronic stressors, maybe that consistently go on time after time after time, their nervous system is programmed during their development of how to handle that. And it's that feedback loop that just keeps happening and happening. And it's so automatic. Like you said, we'll be doing things and it's like, why are you I'm going to give you a personal example, if that's okay.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. So one of the energy patterns that I'm studying it's called the leaving pattern. And it's my dominant pattern. And what it is if there was a traumatic thing that happened either in the womb or in the first 6 months of life, I almost died. My mom almost lost me and she almost died. We have a tendency that our body, physical body, and our spirit did not align. For those of you that believe in spirit, I'm talking to the people that do believe that, which I do. And so when I get overwhelmed, I leave, which means I check out. So I just it's like, hello, is anybody in there? So I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. As I'm learning this about myself and I'm reading and there's books I'm reading and I'm like, ooh, that's so me. I'm driving. My husband's next to me. He's a professional driver. He has a commercial driver's license, drives transit buses. And he's in my ear, like telling me, do this. We get to this light and he's like, no, keep going. And I had a plan in my head. I was going to stop, let the car go. Like I already had it figured out, but he's yelling at me. And so I left. And when I left, I'm not paying attention. So then I'm just following his orders without really thinking about it because I'm now not thinking and almost caused a car accident. So if I was a different pattern than leaving, so if I was, say, an enduring pattern where we stuff everything, I would have stayed present and followed the rules of the road, but I would have pressed down the anger that he made me feel, and then I would have yelled at him later. I would have exploded. So there's different ways that we handle these things. And so when we got home and he's an aggressive pattern, so he's like, no, do it this way. Like he's like talks it out. When he gets anxious, he talks, he's like, do this, do that. I'll do it myself. I got this. And so it's like realizing now that I know this about myself, I was able to have a conversation with him and say, when you were talking at me that way, it caused me to check out. And I almost got in an accident.
Because I think how often is it, like, I remember when I first learned about the concept of like the 5 love languages. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
And you can be like, it's almost like you're speaking a different language because you're patterned differently. So like for me, one of my love language is gifts. So when my birthday comes and people close to me either forget or don't give me a gift or just give me a card, like a gift card, like for me, it's like, that it's not the thought or care. Like, you know, I receive love through it's like, oh, I know it doesn't need to be expensive. Like sometimes when I explain this and people don't have it, they're like, oh, you just want people to buy expensive stuff. No, it's thoughtful things. So, you know, it's the thought or the care. It could be homemade. It could be $2. It's just like, oh, I know Suze loves this. So that my husband couldn't give 2 shits about gifts. Like he doesn't even rank on that thing in the love languages. And his is like quality time. So, and then like, I'm guessing my dad is words of affirmation because, you know, so when you have, it's like, and similar to what you're talking about, when you're patterned differently, if you're like a person who checks out, but someone is a person who speaks through it, and you can see that in disagreements or arguments, one person will shut down and the other person just gets louder. And it's like, if we're not speaking the same language, yelling or slowing down is not going to help the communication because we're not speaking the same, you know, language.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. Like talking about the love languages, you know, your husband could be like, let's go sit on the porch swing, honey, and watch the sunset. And you're like, I don't care. Give me a gift.
Exactly. It's like, I've
happy birthday, honey. We're going to watch the sunset. And you're like,
yeah,
where's my gift?
Yes. Or you have somebody whose words of affirmation and they're like to be reminded that, you know, they're doing a good job or you appreciate them or whatever. And you're like, yeah, you're amazing. So like, what are we going to do if it, you know, so it's different communications. And that's what's reminded me. So what was this called again? You said the name of it and I forgot.
Yeah. So it's transpersonal energy healing, and it's really a combination of the nervous system, child, development, and how your nervous system is pre-programmed during the that's
You
pretty
can't
to
English.
say.
You're welcome on my show during the developmental
No.
stages.
Developmental stages. Yes. So I always like to let people know when I share about the information that I'm learning too. I'm going to be using this with my clients because we have all these triggers automatically. It's in our nervous system. We have no control. It's an automatic thing. It does release your stress hormones. It does all the things start with your nervous system and all of that stuff. And from a medical background, I like geek out on it because I'm like, ooh, this makes sense. I understand
Yes.
it now. So, it's understanding that you're not a bad parent or you didn't have bad parents, because it can happen. It happens with everybody. There's something I read, and it's, we all have some form of trauma in life, and we
Oh,
all go through
100%.
pain. We don't have to suffer.
I love
So
that.
that's kind of
So
the journey that I'm on, is I want to get out of the suffering. I want to get out of the reactive stuff that I'm doing that's making me just feel yucky and bad, and having that voice in your head, like, you can get rid of that stuff just going through and healing from some of the things that you didn't realize were damaging.
I love how you brought attention to that, as in we all have trauma. It doesn't mean that we're not good parents or our parents weren't good. For anyone listening, like this, can be the first time you've come across something like this. I recommend, there's a TED talk by Kalita Malouf. Kalita's been on the show earlier. If you search up Kalita Malouf TED talk, you'll find it. She speaks about boom, boom trauma and drip drip trauma, and just the way she phrases it makes so much sense. Boom boom trauma is a clear before and after, like if you were involved in an accident or an assault or something, that's clear. But drip drip trauma, it's little things that in and of themselves don't make that big of a deal, but over a period of time, and we all have that. And it doesn't mean, as you said, that somebody was intentionally out to do, or our parents didn't do a good job, or our community and whatever didn't care for us. But it's just these little things and how they activate the nervous system. It sounds like, yeah, I can totally see why you're geeking out over that. And I think the more that we can speak about these things, and I think a lot of the reason people don't is because they don't want to say, oh, I had a good childhood, I don't want my parents to feel bad. We're not saying that at all. We all have this, like I love how you spoke about like things in the womb. Things can happen that wasn't anybody's fault, but just, was what occurred. I'm thinking about my son's experience in the womb. Wouldn't surprise me if he had lots of things like this because he had a traumatic time. I know I was the mum experiencing it. So
Yeah.
Susie, if people
Yeah.
want to know more about this, and the work that you do and stuff, like explain what do you do with this? How do you help people? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So this is really new for me. My main business that I do is I work with women leaving the medical profession to start a business. So I work with them on business planning. And what I'm finding, I'm getting certified in this energy healing piece, because we hit limiting beliefs when we become entrepreneurs. And we have them the entire time that we're entrepreneurs, and they never go away. They just get quieter and quieter, and then we can deal with them better. So what I'm realizing is that I'm working through some of this trauma that I didn't realize I had, that's actually creating me to react a certain way and do certain behaviors that impact my business. They impact my personal life. They impact everything, really. And so I'm now incorporating that in my coaching that I do with women that want to start a business as we're doing their business planning. And it's been such a powerful piece to help them when they're, because we just, most of the time, I think our default is freeze. So it's
Yes.
like, I'm not going to look at marketing. I'm not going to look at finance, because it triggers me. Now I have this weird reaction. I'm getting all nervous, or I'm like having this, and it's really tapping into the body feeling, like what's happening in your nervous system when you look at your spreadsheet.
It's so good. So where can people find you?
So they can find me. The best way to find me is my website, has everything, how to reach out to me. The website is Suzy, Suzy Wraines, WRAINES.com. And you can also find me if you type out startingabusinesssimplified.com, and it'll redirect you.
Sweet. Thank you so much for joining us, Suzy. This has been fabulous. I will
Yeah, thanks
catch
for
you.
having me.
You are most welcome. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.